Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and I've published over 1,000 videos on my channel. And out of those 1,000 videos, I often take the most interesting moments and I cut them up into short form content. But I have a feeling that a lot of you haven't seen my short form content. So I've decided today to take all of those short form videos and compile them into the longest short form video you've ever seen. And I'm gonna try to organize it a little bit, like maybe start with a bunch of tree felling videos, then work into the sawmill and the tractor videos. And heck, there's even a bunch of not so funny dad jokes in there. So hopefully you enjoy it. Let's get started. It's amazing what you can accomplish with a tool as simple as a box blade. But that even goes to another level when you add hydraulic top and tilt. Here I'm cutting into this hillside and having trouble because there are so many big rocks. So I angle the blade as far as it'll go, and only the rippers are engaging and it picks out those rocks. Here I'm cutting a little drainage ditch on the back side of our pond, and it's on the side of a hill without much room on each side, so this would have been hard any other way. And in this example, I'm digging a swale to drain water down towards the pond. You might be wondering why this tree has straps around it, or why I'm cutting from the middle towards the back. The answer is that this is a leaning tree that has a lot of damage on it and a lot of dead limbs. As a result, I was concerned that it could barber chair, which is when the tree splits vertically and can kick back towards you and become very dangerous. One major cause of a barber chair is when the tree falls before you've properly set the thickness of your hinge. The bore cut helps to prevent this by allowing you to set the hinge thickness exactly the way you want it before releasing the tree. So you start at your bore cut and cut back towards the back of the tree, and then when you get about 2 inches away, you pull the saw out and cut the trigger from the outside, which is a step I didn't properly execute on this tree. This is a classic story of man versus stump, where I cut, dig, drill, and burn on this, and we'll see who wins. And I hit a clump of dirt. Now the chain's too dull, it won't cut. I'm gonna have to go sharpen a chain. Now I'm using my tree puller like a stump bucket to just grub up all the area around the stump, and then I drag all that out with the bucket. What I have done is I've allowed a fire to really burn this. Now, time to get out the drill. And then I spent the next 8 hours building up a massive fire on this stump. I was burning on this stump a couple days ago and it was completely burned out. Now, just with the leaf blower, watch this. Level, this oak tree was about 40-inch diameter, and I dug all the way around it with tractor backhoe, busted up as many roots as I could, and then got the tree puller down there and finally was able to rip it out. Unless you have a giant machine, digging out tree stumps this size is no small job. This sawdust pile represents 10 years of byproduct from a sawmilling operation, and today we're going to spread it across 100 acres of farm ground to try to enrich the soil. If you want to see the rest of this process and some rednecks having a good time, check out the full version on Facebook and YouTube. We are in the process of a massive transformation to this farm pond, and I thought I'd show you some of the highlights. Here you see us breaking ground on an expansion that not only adds more water volume to the pond, but also allowed us to have an island that we're setting up a windmill aerator on. We have one bridge that we've already set in place, and you'll see in just a second. Now you can see the pond fast forwarded 6 months later, and we're digging out the other side around the island and getting ready to set the bridge in. I finished the planks on the bridge yesterday, and I will be starting the new windmill project tomorrow. The windmill we have is not just decorative, but also aerates the pond. Now you see me walking across this dry bridge that represents the biggest challenge of the whole project, which is putting the longer bridge to the other side, which will be over 30 feet. Obviously, I can't show the entire process in short form video, but I do have full-length videos on YouTube and Facebook showing it all. Well, I got my bar pinched, and believe it or not, this is the first time I've ever taken a chainsaw off of a bar because the bar was pinched. I've got a cheat code at home that skid loader will move whatever log I'm working on. So if I was at home right now, I'd just nudge this log and the saw would pop out. See if I can get a wedge right in here. Looks like it's actually going to continue rolling. You know, it's really remarkable how much our taste and the things we like change over time. A great example of this is I've never really liked beards, but this one is really growing on me. Every solution should start with a clearly defined problem, and in the case of this homemade backhoe hauler, I had two problems. The first problem is when you take the backhoe off, it has a tendency to sag, which makes it harder to reconnect. The second problem is if you set it down in one spot, you don't have the ability to move it around. And this effectively solved both problems and is still holding up well a year later. There you can see I picked it up off of the hauler, then I moved the hauler, set the backhoe back down. There's one bar that I slide into place. Then I can carry it around, put it in my shed, and it never sags. There are two cuts here that are suspended. What I think I'm going to do is cut the top, cut down the back, put wedges in the top, then cut up through the bottom, and do both cuts at the same time. Hey, one of them actually went according to plan. That was a good clean cut.
That was elderly gentleman, and he was just moping around the house. And one day his wife says, "Honey, why don't you call Bill and see if he'll go play some golf with you?" And he's like, "Well, I would, but would you play golf with somebody that writes down the wrong score? And would you play golf with somebody that picks up the ball and moves it when you're not looking?" And she says, "No, I don't think I would." He says, "Well, Bill won't either."
And that's why I get my logs from Paul Case. He's good for one of those a day.
Yeah, I gotta tell you a story and then I've gotta leave.
That's my favorite right there, the top steer. It's the most rare. There's only 444 of them manufactured, and to find one is very, very rare. You see very few of them still going today.
127 years ago, this was cutting-edge corn equipment.
Yeah.
Introduced in 1875.
Gotta look at the price.
Yeah, for $65 to $75. I'll give you that for it now.
Yeah.
Third built D Industrial out of 91, built and sold.
Right. Many of John Deere tractors today are still power shift driven, but this is the very first one that they made. It's all PTO driven.
So this thing doesn't run off hydraulics at all.
No hydraulics at all.
And it accomplishes that. Or how do you control it then?
Okay.
Look in there and actually see everything. We should be. That right there, baby bees. That's all the brood. See in the different stages.
Yeah.
So every 21 days there's new
Oh, really?
bees hatch out.
The routine now is go up 5 clicks after each cut. Draw the saw back, then go up 5 clicks, then make sure my clamps are still tight. These logo saw mills make chainsaw milling feel like bandsaw milling. That is fantastic dimensional lumber. Nice and straight, beautiful. Number one thing I'm automatically a big fan of is the log lift. Woo doggy! What you see right now is just across the fence onto my neighbor's side of the property, and my pond is leaking and causing him a problem. So I'm over here to fix it. You'll actually see me really fixing it on my side of the property in a future video, but this is a backup plan to help him out. Now, he actually asked me to dig a trench, but after we looked at it a little bit, we decided maybe a swale would work well. And rather than get the backhoe, I'm just going to cut it with the box blade. Now, the reason I can do a good job of cutting a swale with the box blade is I've got top and tilt cylinders on my 3-point. And that means I can jack it all the way to one side and dig pretty aggressively. This only took me about an hour and a half with a compact tractor. I think it turned out pretty good. But we won't really know till the rainy season hits. Today we're comparing 3 large steel saws that are in a similar price range. All are running a 25-inch bar with a new chain. We started with the 461. It took 19 seconds to make 2 cuts off this log. Then we go to the 500i, and it took 17 seconds to make the same 2 cuts. After that, we went to the 661, which surprisingly took 21 seconds. Now, part of that is the 661 is a higher displacement saw with more low-end torque. So if this was a more challenging cut, I have no doubt that the 661 would be the winner. But for today, the 500i really performed well, and it's a great saw. Actually, they're all great saws. I was a little bit nervous about cutting this tree down because the base is completely hollow, but I thought it was worth at least finding out how solid it is higher up. So I made a plunge cut about 4 foot high, which told me that it was soft but not hollow. At that point, I decided to scalp off anything on the back that wasn't providing strength. By removing the wood that wasn't holding anything, it simplifies the cut. At this point, I've had almost no effect on the strength of the tree by making this cut. This wood wasn't holding much anyway. After that, I made a traditional face cut, and I was planning to bore cut and work back because the tree has some lean, but I ended up making a traditional back cut as well. So we've put a lifting strap all the way around the log. Then we put this shackle on to hold those in place. So in theory, if we lift straight up on the shackle, it's going to turn this 90 degrees. Then we put another lifting strap through the shackle that's going to go on the fork. Hopefully this is a safer, easier way to do it, other than just grunting.
Well, Brock asked me, he says, do we want to just try to turn this by hand? And I said, well, you know, it sounds kind of old of me to say this, but back in my day, we didn't have much choice. We took 2 can hooks and we turned it. Mm-hmm. The question is, do we want to?
Yeah, hurting my back or something else, it doesn't sound that exciting. We're going to see if we can do it with the equipment. First thing I noticed is these log stops are different than anything I've seen before.
Just pivot it down. So if you've got a short log, you just drop it down. If you've got a tall one, flip it up.
And then to start the blade, it's this handle right here. And you can see it slides the motor that way to engage the drive belt. So
we'll turn this up on its side, have that up flat against those, so that's perfectly 90.
As I get ready to buy a sawmill, I've been traveling around and testing a lot of different brands and doing comparisons. And there are a lot of things to like about this Easy Boardwalk 40-inch mill. Sometimes we emphasize that these are what you would call like a rough cut mill, but this is uniform thickness all the way down, and so is the last piece.
If that was hardwood, you could mill veneer on this mill.
I could win this real easy. All you got to do is take a bunch of dirt with it. Just dig a hole. Just take the dirt with it. It'll work. Yeah. What they always tell me is that you don't need to watch a feller cut down a tree to know if he knows what he's doing or not. The hinge or the face cut, I think, should have been just a little bit deeper. I got my height here about 1 inch higher than here. I like it a little bit. I like the back of this to be a little bit higher, but it is flat and straight. And I came down to a hinge that was the same thickness on each side. And that's when I was on this side of the tree. Then I decided I was going to make sure I was thin enough over here, and as I walked around to here, I could already see the tree starting to come up. But it was starting to come up, and this side, we still had like 4 inches of hinge, and this side was even more. And I thought, I don't want this thing to go over with that much hinge. So even though it was leaving the wedges, I came over here and sniped this a little bit thinner. Now I thought I would have to wedge this more. I thought the weight was more even. So my expectation was I was going to get this down to 2 inches on both sides and then really use the wedges. Overall, it's a pretty clean fall. I want to share with you a couple things that you might want to know before buying a 3/4 ton diesel truck. You just bought it because you like the way you look hook in it, then this may not apply to you. But if you are going to pull serious amounts of weight, a couple things you might want to think about. Number one, GVWR on a 3/4 ton diesel truck is 10,000 pounds. You subtract the actual weight of the truck from that, and that gives you your payload. Well, these diesel trucks nowadays are really heavy. This one weighs over 8,000 pounds. That leaves you less than 2,000 pounds of available payload. And that means if your big camper puts very much tongue weight on, you're gonna go over your payload in a hurry. Another thing that you might wanna factor in is that this truck has a 20,000 pound tow capacity. So I can pull a skid loader and I can pull a dump trailer and stay within the tow capacity, but once again, I'm going over payload. The biggest thing I didn't know is that a 1-ton truck doesn't really cost much more than the 3/4 ton. Where this truck was $80,000, it'd only be $85,000 to get it with all that extra capacity. Now let's hit on the big one. Toyota have eliminated themselves from the market for a guy like me. I have to be able to tow at least 14,000 pounds with any vehicle I have. They do not make a vehicle rated to tow that much. They're out. They are not trying to compete with Ford, Chevy, and Ram in that market. They may be the most reliable truck in the industry. They may be the best in a dozen ways. They have not decided they want to play in this market. And until they do, maybe don't bring that up in a video reviewing a Ram 2500. I wanted to drain water from the pond down to the road, and I was originally thinking I was going to dig a trench, buy pipe, buy landscape fabric, buy rock, put in a drainage, like a French drain. I think that would have been a waste of about $1,200 of material. I think this kind of a shallow trench is kind of underrated, if you ask me. Didn't spend a dime on it. The problem with a ladder or a scaffolding is that it's not very stable on uneven ground. That ain't going nowhere. I think these pallet fork safety cages are a big step in the right direction. This one was only $200 and it's made by Vevor. Today we're digging a drainage ditch to get as much water as possible to flow down into the pond. Now, there's a couple different methods for doing this. You can actually form the entire ditch just scooping dirt out from the sides, but I find I get a more consistent grade with the method you see here, which is to remove one swath down the middle that is the width of your bucket, and then put one track on the high ground and one track down in your new ditch, and that creates the angle, and I use that to contour both sides. I've done quite a few of these, and it works pretty darn well. Now obviously I can't show the whole project in this short, but it takes a few passes to smooth everything out. Overall though, I was real happy with the finished product, and this took me about an hour to do. This is a 12.5 pound channel cat that I've been trying to get for the last couple weeks. Caught him on some bluegill fillet, and we're gonna let him go now because I've got a 6-year-old grandson who really wants to be the one to catch this one. I was on my way to somewhere else. I got a call asking if I could cut these beams up, and they told me they're really big. I might not be able to lift them with the skid loader. I said, that's ridiculous. I felt attacked, actually. My skid loader can lift anything. Jiminy Christmas, I cannot believe how big those actually are.
You're teetering. You don't like being on that side of the hill. Hey, why don't you just lift it up, let him pull out?
You guys can let me know if I'm biting off more than I can chew. Local disc golf course wants me to turn these into planks for a bridge. And that means breaking them into pieces where they're bolted together and prying them apart, and then trying to cut them on my Woodland Mills HM130 Max sawmill. And with all the creosote in them, that's going to be a challenge, but I could probably do it if I use diesel fuel. So what do you think? Is this worth taking on? Wait until you see what we do with these giant 5,000 pound railroad beams.
Look, hey, I got this one.
In a previous life, these beams supported a bridge for trains to drive across, and we are going to repurpose them into a walking bridge for a disc golf course. Our first challenge was removing all the hardware and separating the beams. Then we had to cut it into pieces that would fit on my HM130 Max sawmill. After that, The next problem was the potential of the creosote to gum up the blades and the belts. We used pine saw to cut the creosote with. And beyond that, it was fairly standard milling. This is a really nice stack of lumber. We've got several videos showing the entire process of building the new bridge, and I'll put links to those in the pinned comment. We're building a bridge for a disc golf course out of these used railroad timbers, and I'm going to try to show it to you in less than a minute. It's not going to slide. If anything, it might just tip it over. You only need an inch to get the beam under right here if that's what you're going for. Let me lift the beam up so you can set that under.
If you don't mind.
I think this is so cool, especially considering this was done with basically no budget. Show us how it's done.
If your blade is, the teeth on it's pointed the wrong way for your mill, because there are mills that blow sawdust out one direction and there's mills that blow it out the other way. And the blades that we get are shipped to us backwards sometimes. So you want to start out with the teeth toward you. I usually put my foot on it and then just take the top and twist it so that it turns the other way, and that changes the direction that the teeth are cutting.
Gloves are optional on that?
Depends on how calloused your hands are.
Now, do you fold them up like a ribbon and put them in a box?
Nope, we usually unfold them though.
Oh man, that's freaking me out just watching.
There you go, Brock. You can take that home. You want to see how Scott gets it loose? He does. He'll just throw it out in the sawdust pile.
There's no other way to say it, guys. This is crazy. We're going to step from outside into the Quonset hut. And today we're going to put some high bay LED lights out here in the Quonset hut. We are using this metal clad wire to these junction boxes, and the lights themselves are going to hang from these homemade brackets. I'm unboxing the lights. These come with a regular plug-in. It's got the hook that we're hanging it from that screws in here.
That's not going to go anywhere.
We're going to be powering these lights initially off of this Geniverse Home Power Pro 2. So I'm going to remove a bolt right here and put the power cords from my solar panel through the wall, get them hooked into this. Ta-da!
We got lights.
And you don't want to look directly at them because you might go blind. Those suckers really are bright. The surface of the sun called. They said it's too bright over here. Today I'm going to put a winch on the gooseneck trailer and get it set up with a power source that hopefully I never have to mess with. I have 3.5-inch grade 8 Allen head bolts with a lock washer, and that goes through the plate on the receiver. Then we've got our bar stock, 1/2-inch fender washers, and nylock nuts. I got a marine battery. It's already got the post on it, so I'll just be putting these on right here, plug this in, and we're in operation. But then the question is, how do you maintain your battery? I really debated if I wanted to trickle charge from my 7-pin or use solar. I ended up going with solar. I've bought this solar panel right here. This used to be what we call a cow killer pond that drops straight off into the water. But I've put quite a bit of work into reshaping it, and this is the last step of that, where I'm kind of smoothing it out and then planting grass seed to hopefully keep it from eroding. Well, I feel like I gave this my best to make water run off of it, to get grass to grow, to make it smooth to mow. Those were the goals. Hopefully it works. I want to tell you guys about a filter that I've been using for a long time, and I call it the dirty shirt filter. And the way it works is, just as often as possible, I try to wear a dirty shirt. And that filters out the kind of people that only want to talk to me if I'm wearing a clean shirt. You ought to try it.
I heard a story about a guy that lived in the country and had animals, a farmer and everything, and he had a cousin that lived in the city. And it was around the holiday time, so the cousins had all come to his house and was staying with him, and he caught one of them city cousins out by the fence looking over the fence one day. And he said, what are you looking at? He said, I just wondered, why doesn't that cow have horns? And he's like, well, there's a lot of reasons a cow don't have horns. Some breeds of cattle just don't have horns, like Angus, they're a hornless breed. And then some cattle, when they're little, we don't want them to have horns when they're big, so we put some stuff on there that causes the horn not to grow. And then sometimes when they get big and have horns and we're trying to milk them, they're rambunctious and they'll hurt you, and so we have to cut those horns off. No pain to the animal or nothing, but the reason that cow don't have horns is because it's a horse.
The all-new Bad Boy Bandit side-by-side comes with electronic fuel injection on a liquid-cooled engine, an automatic transmission, four-wheel independent suspension with nitrogen-assisted shocks, locking differential, four-wheel drive, with a front bumper winch included, which has controls right on the dash. It comes with power steering and a max speed of 45 miles per hour, which is not bad on a machine that costs less than $15,000. We put in 5 days of pretty hard, consistent work on this, and I just want to see it run.
Moment of truth.
Moment of truth. You can see the current pickup.
Yep, it's right at the top.
Oh, yeah! Woo!
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
We've got a full series of videos building this pond on the channel, so check it out. How you would hook it, or you got a better idea?
No, that's exactly how I'd hook it.
Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to find out if this brush grubber works. Well, this is kind of a bummer, especially for the guy who paid for it. And I'm not here to try to leave a negative review or anything, but what we got is this actually bent out.
Both of them, actually.
Yeah, it bent both of them. I mentioned the other day that my trailer was bouncing violently when there was no load on it, and I literally think it's just broken belts inside the tires. Most of the time, manufacturers put junk tires on a new trailer anyway, and these just didn't last very long.
That root's going down over on this side.
This is like 8-inch diameter. I did one in my yard that was 14-inch diameter, pulled it out in like 3 minutes with minimal effort. This thing about got the best of me. This is a cedar, and that one was, I think like a white pine maybe, but it didn't have that kind of taproot. I just picked up this new 6-way rear blade from Ironcraft. It can tilt, offset, and angle, and I think it's gonna be good for digging shallow drainage ditches. I'm hoping that'll reach from the driveway down into my ditch next to the driveway. It was muddy outside, and this is just a little test run, but I've got several more projects planned for this tool. I'm several hours in, that is still a lot of stump. But I'm having a heck of a good time, as long as my tractor holds up. She's not the biggest tractor out there, but she's been tough, and she's done everything that I've asked her to do. Wish they could all be like that. I have the feeling I'm probably going to be taking like a Caribbean vacation after he measures these. These aren't like those last puny ones. These are the good logs. And times 0.4.
173.20.
All in a day's work. So the coolest thing about this building in my mind is this feed conveyor they've got down under here. They built a concrete trough to set it in, and once a day he can just turn that on and automatically feed out the sawdust. And then that's a spreader hooked to this old tractor so they can just drive it out and spread it across the field if they want. I want to show you some clips of some of the tests that Rust Patrol as a company has already done. So one of them I'll let you talk about is with the metal panels.
We took the metal panels and coated them with the various products and then sprayed them twice a day with salt water for 3 weeks just to speed up the corrosion process, and did a time lapse so you can watch things rust.
And you can tell right here, the results are that Rust Patrol outperformed the other products in that test.
Amazing.
Having a grapple on your tractor is awesome, but it's also really expensive. That's why I'm showing you this Precision Manufacturing Add-A-Grapple. It lets you put a grapple onto any tractor bucket for a lot less than you would spend on a standalone grapple. The other benefit to adding a grapple on top of your bucket is you don't have to switch attachments every time you want to switch functionality. It's just always there when you need it. And it does a better job than I expected at picking up large or irregular loads. At $1,000 for this exact Add-A-Grapple and $500 for their third function kit, it's dramatically cheaper than any other option I've seen. So go to agfolks.com and use code ROCKHILL for 5% off. For whatever else you want to say about John Deere, they nailed it with these auto connect decks. Mowing around the house, I will take off the loader and the 3-point attachment because in this configuration it weighs close to 6,000 pounds, which is a little on the heavy side for a lawnmower. Gives a nice cut though. When I make videos down here by the pond, a lot of people ask me why the water's this color. When I got my windmill, the company that sent me the windmill also sent me some pond dye. And that pond dye is not just because you like the water to look that color, it's because having it darkened with the dye prevents sunlight from reaching the bottom of the pond, which helps slow or prevent the growth of unwanted plant life or algae. So you're essentially keeping your pond healthier by dyeing it blue. Kind of cool, right? I did come back and clean up that Dutchman before starting the bore cut. My mistake here is that after making a bore cut, I should have left a trigger and cut it from the outside. I want to give a quick review on this inexpensive Harbor Freight portable sandblaster. So first we'll watch it work and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. The spot you see me working on right now has already had the majority of the rust removed with a wire wheel on a grinder, and that's faster for that part, but this gets a little bit more of a deep clean. Now I'm working on this antique hay wagon with no prior prep, and it does a great job. And this sandblaster is inexpensive, it was easy to set up, but the negatives to it are that it's pretty slow, honestly. Took me maybe 5 minutes to do this little bit right here, and you need a good size air compressor to run it. Mine puts out 15 cubic feet per minute. Blasting media could also get expensive. If you like equipment videos or working on stuff, follow the channel. We put full-length versions on YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to attempt to give you a comparison between a flail mower and a traditional rotary cutter in under a minute. The most obvious difference is that a flail mower gives you a very fine finished cut, almost like after you've mowed your lawn. It mulches the material, whereas a rotary cutter just chops it off and leaves it laying on the ground. Flail mowers are more compact and therefore more maneuverable, and on most models you have the ability to offset or even angle the mower. But obviously it's not all positive. A flail mower is much more expensive than a traditional rotary cutter. It's also heavier. It has more blades to sharpen when they need to be sharpened. So not ideal for really rocky ground or if there are a lot of hazards you could hit. Now let's take a look at those blades and see how they held up to the first couple jobs. On first glance here, those look pretty good. I want to start off by saying I've never met a tractor I didn't like, and I've been driving a lot of them lately, but this Coyote really impressed me. It's a really large machine with lower horsepower for people who are trying to avoid having a DPF filter or a regen. Being a big heavy machine, it never felt underpowered with that 25 horsepower. It has more lift capacity and higher hydraulic flow levels than my 38 horsepower John Deere for a lot less money. Now, there are things I like better about the Deere, but the most impressive thing is the owner of this tractor has put 400 hours on it, and I asked him what problems he had. He literally said he's not had a single problem with it. If you like this custom 3-point carryall I built, I've got a full series of videos on how I put it together. I've seen a lot of conversation online about whether the different John Deere compact tractor models can move full-size round bales. And these are 6-foot round bales, so about as big as you generally see them. And this is a 2 Series 2038R with the mechanical self-leveling loader, which adds a little bit of lift capacity. Now, if I moved hay bales every day, I'd get a bigger tractor. But if you only have the occasional need to move them, it can handle it. It can also do it with the 3-point. If you're pushing your lift capacity like I'm doing here, make sure you've got plenty of ballast. That box blade is actually a little bit light, but I have suitcase weights hanging on it. Check out the full-length version for how I set up a very inexpensive bale spear on my loader. Today I want to show you the new Artilian Iron Fist grapple. And I can say with 100% certainty, you've never seen a grapple like this. I'm not going to say this is the best grapple on the market for a compact tractor because that depends on your individual needs and your preferences, but it is very unique in that it has 2 fully articulating jaws that operate separate from each other and opens to 51 inches, which allows it to grab a really large pile of brush or one individual log. This is a Woodland Mills HM126. I've used a lot of different sawmills from different manufacturers over the last 2 years, and I've got to say, for the average hobbyist, I think this mill from Woodland Mills provides a lot of value at what you pay for it, and everyone I've talked to has been really happy with the ease of use and the durability of the mill. I'm loving this new fire pit from Superior Accents. It's a fantastic design. The entire thing is made out of 3/16 plate steel. Easy to build a fire in it. It comes apart, fully portable, great looking product. Now let's get some food on here and see how it cooks. Once I start pulling, the harder I pull, the tighter they dig in. On this end, I keep this D-ring here. So now, I'm gonna take the chain further down and just hook it like this. I'm gonna go ahead and put this cable dampener on this chain. Figure it can't hurt, right? I would make the case that the 4-in-1 bucket is the most underrated attachment. It's standard issue in Australia on these tractors, but you don't see them a whole lot here in the States. It is a grapple and it's an HD bucket, and it doesn't cost that much. So here you see me moving a good sized log with it, which saves me from switching attachments all the time, but it's also really versatile for back dragging and moving dirt. And if you take your machine with you on jobs, it means you only have to take one attachment in some cases. Let me know your thoughts on the 4-in-1. I got these two tractor mount PTO's stump grinders together and ground almost identical stumps to do a complete comparison between them. On the top is a Woods stump grinder and the bottom is the Bomalite. The Bomalite stump grinder cost about $9,000 and weighs about 1,000 pounds. It's got a 6-foot swing on it and only grinds in one direction. The Woods grinder grinds in both directions, weighs 540 pounds, and has about a 4-foot swing on it. Now, the Bomalite grinder took 45 minutes to grind this stump, and the Woods stump grinder took about an hour and 15 minutes. So, definitely faster with the Bomalite, but you pay for that difference. If you want to see a full comparison between these two grinders, as well as a fixed versus articulating grinder comparison, check out Rock Hill Farm on YouTube.
These drill bits here look enough like a masonry bit that I have to show right off the bat how much tougher than carbide they are. If you're ever struggling trying to get started into a piece of steel and you keep walking across the surface of the steel, if it happens with the Bad Dog, because the tips of these bits are carbaloid rather than common carbide, feel free to use the drill bit. As a set for itself. So if you break a stud out or an extractor trying to get to the stud, turn back around and use the same bit that you cut stainless with to cut masonry with and cut tile with. And if you damage one, we replace it with another one. The cutoff wheel is a 46 grit diamond. So whether you're cutting concrete with rebar, stucco with a lath, whether you're cutting steel or stone, and if you've ever worked in porcelain, this might mean something to you. 9,000 RPM through full body porcelain tile would melt the diamond off a good $50 tile saw. Not only do you cut it all, because the diamond drops all the way down the face, you also grind it all. So go ahead and cut and grind, and if it stops, we replace it.
Here we are shredding a tree with a ASV 120 horsepower skid loader and a Lofness forestry mulcher. This is part of a full day of forestry mulching, and I'll put a link in the description to the long version of this video.
Is that 5-inch maybe?
Yeah, it's rated for 8, so as long as you take it slow, it's usually just choosing right up.
want to tell you real quick about our homemade panel saw. Everything here was made from materials we already had, basically. We bought almost or literally nothing specifically to make this, and we've been cutting it as a production saw for 6 years. So if you're interested in seeing more about this, I have a full-length video with all the details, and I'll put that in the description. There's going to be a wide range of people who watch a video like this. Some will be loggers and tree felling experts, and some will have never cut a tree down. So I'm going to try to give a quick explanation for the people who know in less than I do. A traditional cutting method with a face cut and then a back cut leads to a barber chair on a leaning tree like this, because all of the weight that's leaning out causes your hinge to break before you get it thin enough for it to break cleanly. And that's when it breaks early and stretches all that fiber and does what you just saw. Now, the method I use prevents that by letting you set your hinge width before cutting the trigger on the back. But doing all of that is completely pointless if you don't get the hinge thin enough. And I knew that, and for whatever reason, I just didn't look closely enough or give enough thought to how thick my hinge was. Pretty obvious mistake that I won't make again. So hopefully you guys can learn from me. The hinge thickness really matters. Can you get it? Hey, don't fall down. You gonna hook up the PTO shaft? Don't pull it, it'll come all the way off. Don't pull it off there. Push it back in. Maybe we ought to go get the tractor and get this hooked up right. Good job. Set it down. Oh, now you got it hung up there so it's not on the ground. Great job. It's been a lot of work and some cool videos to get to this point, but we're finally setting the bridge in to reach over to the island on our pond. We had a leaky pond dam that sat right on the property line, and the bank was only about 3 foot wide. So we worked across it with a mini excavator and a skid loader, cutting a keyway and widening the dam at the same time. I've got full-length videos showing the whole process if you're interested. What you're seeing here is a Fecon Stump X on a John Deere 333G high flow machine. Now this thing turns at a slow RPM and just planes the stump down with a remarkable amount of torque. I've got this footage playing at 4 times speed, but it still shredded this entire stump in maybe 3 or 4 minutes of real time. I don't know if a high-end commercial stump grinder can even match that speed. You'll probably want a 100 horsepower high flow machine to run this. My Deere 325G is 74 horsepower and 32 gallons of flow per minute, and I don't think it would handle this very well. I sure love the sound of that old Johnny Popper, even if it's not as practical as some of my newer equipment. And this video was about picking up the new John Deere antique hay wagon to pair with that old tractor. And it's in pretty good shape for something I got on Marketplace for $300. And I've already put new tires on it, so should be good to roll. Be sure to follow along if you enjoy equipment videos. What you're seeing here is an inverted log splitter from Wolf Ridge Manufacturing. They are a small, family-owned business that manufactures a wide range of firewood equipment right here in the USA. So go check them out and tell them you saw their products at Rock Hill Farm. I really need to get a deck over gooseneck trailer to make this easier, but in the meantime, if you ever have to unload bulk lumber or any type of material like this out the end of a trailer, the trick is to extend it as far as you can without pulling it off the trailer, obviously, and then support the end with something solid and stable, like a stack of pallets in this case, so that you can come around to the side and get centered under the load and lift it off. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. What you're seeing here is a tree puller from Precision Manufacturing. It's got a set of jaws with 30 tons of clamping force that allow you to just grab a tree and rip it out of the ground. You're seeing me here pull up 6-inch diameter trees with a mid-size John Deere 325G skid loader. If you're not able to just rip them out of the ground, you've of course got the ability to grip up higher and push and pull. And also, you have cutting teeth on the top and the sides of the tree puller, which allow you to use it like a stump bucket to get underneath the roots and break them out. Really a cool tool for land clearing that doesn't leave stobs. Now, I don't sell this product or make any commissions from it, but if you use code ROCKHILL5 at agfolks.com, you can save 5% off your order. Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and today we're going to dig a borrow pit. The first thing I had to do was find a good section of ground that didn't have any rocks in it and had the right type of topsoil and clay. I did that by digging a pilot hole with the backhoe and found this was a great spot. Then I started digging my borrow pit, making sure to separate materials. The first pile was sod, followed by topsoil, and finally clay. As I fill this hole back in, you can see the big pile of clay behind me. And that's the purpose of this. I had a pile of junky fill dirt that was full of rocks, and I wanted good clean clay. And now I've got it, and when I'm done, it looks like I never did anything. Buying this clay wasn't cheap, so I felt like this was a good use of my time. I finished by putting the sod back in and hitting it all with the Harley rake. I've done a bunch of videos working on the pond, and everyone always asks me if there's fish in it. So we just caught one and I'm gonna show it off. Not too bad. So that's the second one he's caught this week. Hopefully there's a lot more in there. So the goal here would be to lay a nice 1-inch layer smooth all the way up this driveway. You got 3 variables. Number 1 is how you adjust your chains. That's how much rock can come out at a time. Next variable is how steep of an angle you have the bed at. Third variable is how fast you drive. I don't know, it's just gonna be trial and error, so we'll try it right there. All right, it looks like that's a starting point. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to try to turn this nasty looking log into some nice lumber. Solid as a rock. No voids whatsoever. So the part of this stump that's sticking out of the ground looked pretty rotten, and it had actually been burned when this field got burned off. But it's amazing how strong the root system can still be. What looked like a little bit of nothing took me half a day to dig out, because I had to dig way out around and about 5 or 6 foot deep. I'll pin a comment showing the full process of digging this out. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to show you our homemade pocket hole jig. We drill thousands and thousands of pocket holes every day in this shop. Here's a stack of our products that are ready to drill. So we built this with 4 air cylinders and a movable board right here. Then we've got all these different drilling jigs. You just pop a board in, that holds it in place. These drilling jigs are at preset distances for different parts. Now, if you want to know the full story of this product, we have a full video on it. I'll put that in the description. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and I'm going to show you a quick, easy way to remove post without a tractor. So I've got a post driver right here. It's wedged up against the notches on this. Got my foot on the bottom of it, and just pull like that, and then go to the next one. Like that. Next one. Not a lot of effort. So, thanks for watching. Check out Rock Hill Farms on YouTube for more cool videos. I tell you what, this hedge is probably the hardest wood I've ever cut. And I had to do a little freehand to start with. It's really got a nice look to it. I want to give you a quick tour of my equipment shed. I built custom shelves all along the back wall that house all of my tractor attachments. I have 3 of the 4 bays done, and I'll be completing the last bay soon. This shelf here is for front end attachments. The next bay, I set up my fuel storage tanks for gasoline and diesel. And above that is my mid-mount mower deck. The next bay is for 3-point attachments. The taller attachments, like the backhoe, stump grinder, and carryall, go at ground level, and I built a shelf above that for the rest of the attachments. There's a landscape rake, and the rest of my 3-point attachments. The final bay will also be for 3-point attachments that wouldn't fit here like the bush hog. And we use the end wall for hanging up chainsaws and my extra doors and things like that. If you like this kind of content, check out the rest of the channel. And thanks for watching. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and I want to show you what I think is the perfect carryall, or at least the perfect carryall for me and my firewood splitting. So up here, I've got my 2 chainsaws on the Artilian modular rack. I've got the fuel can holder. These can be switched out. I can put a toolbox up there, whatever I need. Then I've got my splitting ball on that side, sledgehammer on this side, a hitch down here so I can pull the log splitter, and I feel like I've got everything I need. This is a removable tailgate, slides up real easy, sets in these blocks here, and makes a workbench for getting your chainsaw ready to go. So if you like this type of content, subscribe to Rock Hill Farms on YouTube. All right, today we're going to show you how to put a bucket on a tractor like a boss. Show them, Zayden. Show them how to put that pin in there. First, you got to pull the ring back. Then you got to put the pin in. Then you got to push the ring down. Pull hard on it.
I did.
Let me see. Did you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a thumbs up. And that's how you put a bucket on. Hey, don't worry about that. I'll do it. I've got a tractor. I'd like to know who the heck designed this thing. Best money I ever spent right here. Any of y'all want to come over and drive the tractor? How in the heck does that go on there? What do you mean it's not under warranty? You're moving a couch? Yeah, I'll bring the tractor. No reason to strain our backs over that. When they change the forecast? Now that I got the tractor, I'm gonna need another building. Oh, I wish I could, but I'll be on the tractor all weekend. You wouldn't believe how much money I saved on this tractor. Check the mail first. Okay, let me get the tractor. $300 for that little part? That's ridiculous. I'm starting to think I should have bought an orange tractor. This little guy will do anything the big tractors will do. It just takes a little longer. That's why I bought a green tractor. This thing is a real beast. I would let you drive it, but it takes a lot of skill and practice. I hate this dadgum thing. That's a stupid place for a grease zerk. Why doesn't that have a grease zerk? Maybe I ought to start a YouTube channel like that Tractor Tim. I don't know anything about tractors. I'll just go on YouTube and pretend I do. This is a 32-inch diameter oak tree I'm cutting today. This next stump is the biggest one I ground out all day. It's about 30 inches wide, about 20 inches tall. Not a massive root system under it. I've taken out a lot of stumps bigger than this, but I also charged more for my time when I was doing that. Anyway, they've been wanting to see this one go for a long time because it wasn't really in the land clearing area. It was more in the edge of their yard. This is just a little clip of me brush hogging through some thick woods. If you like this kind of content, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you on the next one. A stump bucket is fantastic for targeted removal because it concentrates all the force of your loader into a narrow spot. The stump bucket you see here is actually the Artilian front hoe bucket. Thanks for watching and subscribe to the channel for more content. There may have been a time or two when I grumbled about the overall capacity of a dump trailer, but the truth is they're about as handy as a pocket on a shirt, and I don't know what I'd do without mine. There's nothing better to remind you how out of shape you are than swinging a splitting maul. I busted another GoPro making this video, so give me a thumbs up and I'll feel a little better about it. I had no intention of making that video so long, but that's how it turned out. I bet nobody made it all the way through, but if you did, a lot of props to you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.